Hey everyone, it's Dr. Natasha Nelson with this week's episode of Above, Down, Inside Out. And I'm really excited about today's episode. We're going to talk about burnout and how close to the edge are you? Are you feeling that sense of exhaustion? Do you find yourself saying, oh my God, I'm so tired? And really, do you find yourself waking up in the morning, even after a good night's sleep, feeling like you're still tired? All of those are signs that your body is letting you know you're very close, if you haven't already crossed into the space of exhaustion, of burnout. And so I want to go through today and give you some information on how to recognize the signs, how you know where you are, and what to do about it. How to find your way back. So before we get started, make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave a question, comment, share this information if you find it helpful, because that will, of course, will help me. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So that's what we're going to start with the idea of burnout. You know, right, I think today, like the studies show about 44%, 44, that's almost half of people say that they are burned out or just chronically fatigued. And I can see it, you can see it. People walking just seemed tired, kind of zoned out and just a little bit checked out too. But you can see the exhaustion and people just, I don't want to say complaining, but just sharing. That's where they're at. The thing about burnout that I want to really help today is understanding that if you are feeling burned out, you're feeling that chronic fatigue, you are on the edge if you haven't already realized this is where you are left so vulnerable and susceptible to injuries, to illness, to disease, to your body breaking down, and in some cases beyond repair. And so it's important to catch and just being honest with where you're at, what you're experiencing is already the start of, okay, what to do, how to make a difference, how to start that shift and pivot into a different direction. And I think this is one of those topics that is so near and dear to me because I have been there. Oh man, for me, probably around 2010 when I went through a divorce and being a single mom, my daughter was, almost 2 at the time. And I was running my own business and doing everything on my own. And I could feel like just the walls feel like they were closing in and exhausted and trying to just function and do everything that I was supposed to do and keep things going. And it was a slow decline, but it was really by 2016 that everything I couldn't keep it going anymore. The exhaustion and burnout to the point where, I was out playing and volleyball and my knee popped and about a week later my back went out and it was that first time that I finally just allowed myself to say, oh my gosh, something has to change. I can't keep going. And not just I can't keep going so I can work out, like that was obviously important, but I knew like everything, the way I was living and what I was trying to force myself to do, and it wasn't working. And that's what my body was letting me know. The way I was living my life wasn't working. And that's really what burnout is. It's letting you know the way you are living your life is not working. So then you go, well, where do you start? Where do you go from there? So let's do a little bit of, some science background, because that's where I like to start. And these are just some general ideas. It's not a lot of detail, but I want to give you some idea of just how the body works. Because if you've listened to my podcast enough, you know I love just helping you understand how your body works. Because once you understand how it works, it will help you make sense of how to solve the problem or deal with the issue when it shows up. So, you hear the word adrenaline. So adrenaline is made in the adrenal glands, and it's your fight or flight response. It's when you get a jolt and you get scared, you'll feel it. And it's just like, whew, what just happened there? And it's designed for your fight or flight system. And it's really designed to be there for about, 15, 20, maybe 25 minutes in your system to allow you to fight the danger or run from danger. And then your body should settle down and exhale and feel able to just your heart rate, blood pressure, things settle down. Endorphins are the hormones when exertion is prolonged. So when you're working out, that first 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes warming up, you have that adrenaline rush, but right around 20 minutes or so, you can feel the shift. And they call it the runner's high, but really the endorphins are when your body kicks into a prolonged gear, which is your heart rate will come down a little bit, but each heartbeat, your heart will pump harder. So you're getting the blood circulating, and your body's doing this in a way that's efficient and sustainable, because adrenaline will get you going, but it's not sustainable. It causes damage to the heart, to the muscles, to your body. So endorphins are designed to be a more sustainable way to fight, flight, work out, and engage, like to be active. And we've heard the word cortisol. And cortisol is a hormone, it's a stress hormone. So there's a lot of overlap, and I'm not going to go into all the details here because, there's like over 600 hormones in the body, and you change one and they all kind of shift. So this is not today's episode. But cortisol is the stress hormone, and it shows up with the emotional stress and prolonged stress in the body. Endorphins and show up really with the physical stress. Cortisol is the emotional stress. And prolonged cortisol is what shifts your body, where you hold on to fat, where it causes actually muscle breakdown. Your body it becomes insulin resistant, so you no longer use sugar and metabolize it properly. It also leads to osteoporosis, which is thinning of the bone, but it also decreases your immune system. And this is why cortisol is so damaging over time. And these are going to be the shifts of hormones that are related to exhaustion and burnout. So really, what is that stress and burnout, and what is it? Well, I want you to think about the phases of stress. So I use stress loosely because if you've heard me talk, stress is not an emotion. It's the physiological changes in the body. So the first is the alarm of fight or flight, that first phase. And it's about 15 to 20 minutes. You get adrenaline, you get cortisol. It's just designed, it's the alarm phase, handle it, and that's it. After that initial, if something is still going on, there's adaptation. And that would be phase 2 of the stress response. And that's going to be more of the sustained adrenaline and cortisol, but it's more of the sustained place. So more than 20 minutes into a couple hours. When that is going on day after day, hour after hour, if your body does not have a chance to relax and recalibrate from alarm, from adaptation, that third phase of stress is going to be exhaustion. And really what that means is your adrenal glands, they're little glands that sit right on top of the kidneys. They're burning out, which means they can no longer pump out the adrenaline, the endorphins, the cortisol. They can't make it and produce it fast enough to keep up with the demands of what you are needing. And they start to burn out. They just can't keep doing it. This is where you start to create some significant hormone disruptions, which can be fully systemic and really starting to interfere with the organs, the muscles, the tissues, and the cellular level of the body. And this is why that burnout phase leaves you susceptible to injuries, to illness, to disease, because your immune system is taxed. Your ability to fight and flight and function is so depleted. And it's the depletion that can lead to depression, which is a different episode. I'm going to go through that later. But that depletion you might feel is depression when it can just be exhaustion. And burnout is when all of the cells just are so tired they cannot function. And really, what does that mean for you and your health? It means that, yes, you have to make changes. You have to start looking at the areas of your life that aren't working and figure out a better way to do it. And everyone starts to go, oh, stress management, I'm just going to rest. Well, that's a good start. But I want to give you a roadmap, because you hear me talk about health as the 5 pillars. Well, if you use the 5 pillars as a roadmap, it will give you instructions to understand what direction to go in and what to look at. How do you know when, where you are in the phases of stress versus, exhaustion and burnout, adaptation? Where are you? Well, here's where you start. If you get a good night's rest, and it's solid, like it's a good solid 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, and you wake up in the morning, do you still feel like, oh, you'd want to sleep some more? Or do you feel like, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start the day. And that means that your body is able to heal and repair at night and replenish the energy sources, and you're ready to go. If you've had a full night's sleep and you wake up and you feel like you could sleep more, you should sleep more, and you just don't get that level of, oh, I'm ready to go. Or if you peter out in the day, it's like 4 hours into the day and you're already feeling like, oh, you need a nap. Oh, I want to go to bed. You are on the edge of chronic fatigue and burnout. So before you start looking at, okay, I'm going to take an energy drink. I'm going to have these supplements. I'm going to do, take this, take that. Before you start looking at what is it that you need to add, I'm going to help you look at the 5 pillars as to know which area in your life do you need to pay attention to. Because all the supplements can help, but if it's a spiritual issue that you're going through, then it doesn't really matter what supplements you're taking. So that's the direction that we're going to go in here. So I want to break it down so you understand. I'm not going to go through the full meaning of all the 5 pillars. That was in a different episode. Actually, I think it was the one right before this. So you can go back and listen to the description of the 5 pillars. What I'm going to give you here are some of the symptoms that show up in those 5 pillars. So when you're looking at the physical pillar of health, your physical health, this is going to be the obvious symptoms of It could be pain, but it could be any symptom of the dysfunction of the physical body. So, chronic injuries, or actually any injury, when it shows up, it's because there was a stress in an area. You can have an injury, you can have an illness, you can have symptoms. Those are all part of the physical. Some of the most common physical signs that lead up to burnout are going to be headaches, digestive issues, yes, a lack of energy, unable to feel rested. This is where you start to notice weight loss or weight gain that you have not been intentionally working on. This is where you can also notice if your nails, your hair, your skin, because when your body is replenishing at the cellular level, your hair, your nails, your skin are kind of the least important. And so if you don't have enough to take care of your whole body, it'll show up in the parts that are the least important. When we look at the chemical, which is the nutrition pillar of health, this one's a little bit harder, but you'll notice symptoms around hormonal changes. Poor nutrition can also be you're eating the right foods, but your body's not absorbing them. So you're still going to feel tired or cravings and malnourished. This is where you can also start to notice you have new or more intense food allergies or sensitivities, or not just to foods, but to fabrics, to chemicals, to, your pets, because your immune system is so depleted that it no longer can tolerate what it was doing before. So that would be the chemical nutrition pillar of health. In the emotional realm, this is where you might notice you just feel everything so building up to where you just want to cry or you want to scream. And it's just like, there's, for almost, you want to say, quote, no reason, but it's just, you get to that place where it'll just come out at the least expected time. You may also notice yourself kind of just numb and shut down, where you feel withdrawn from people, from the things that you actually enjoy. You just don't want to do it anymore. This is the emotional pillar, can be that you don't feel anything, that you just kind of, everything just feels blah. Everything feels just the same. Nothing feels, you don't feel inspired. You don't feel creative. You don't even feel excited. Everything just is just blah. The mental symptoms around the mental pillar are going to be you just having trouble solving problems. You may experience where you're like, I can't get my words out. You're having trouble communicating what you are thinking, communicating ideas. You may not even be having any new, ideas. This is where you may just find yourself coping. And yes, any of the behaviors or actions that are meant as coping behaviors would fall here. But also things like you just say yes when you want to say no, or you say no just because it's easier than to have a conversation, or it's easier than, it's just easier. You're like, kind of like, F it, fine. And you just agree and you say it, though you don't really feel it. The mental areas can be where you find yourself sabotaging yourself because you're procrastinating, or you just want to take a nap and you don't want to work out. You find yourself, it's like people-pleasing behaviors. And this is going to be where you have your boundaries. You're not upholding them. That's all part of the mental pillar of health. Symptoms around the spiritual component of health are going to be You're just a loss of joy and a loss of connection, a sense of loss of purpose in your work or in your life. It can be that you feel hopeless or helpless, powerless. You feel like kind of empty, where you may be walking by, in your home and wherever you walk by the mirror and you don't even really want to look at yourself because you don't want to see that reflection because you know something's missing, because your face feels has that numb, deadpan, really distant look in your eyes. So those are the symptoms that show up in each of the 5 pillars. And I wanted to break that down so that it makes sense for you to know which pillar of health are you, to look at. And all 5 are always going to be involved, but now you can put them in order of which ones are really in need of your attention first. And so this is for you to have an understanding about the levels of how chronic fatigue and exhaustion and burnout show up. Because they don't just, your body's letting you know, and those symptoms are subtle at first and they become louder. And the better you are at recognizing them earlier, the better you are at not having to wait till the very end when your body is breaking down. So the 3 reasons, here are kind of the top 3 of all the years of collecting data, talking with clients and patients. The 3 reasons that you are on the verge of that, it's actually the 3 reasons you are feeling burned out. The top reasons are boundaries that are unclear, the lack of balance, work-life balance has to do with boundaries, people pleasing has to do with boundaries, so burning yourself out, and then distracting yourself from things that are uncomfortable. So you're using things to cope, prolonged over time. At some point, you're going to burn out. The top 3 symptoms that you are in survival, chronic fatigue, close to burnout, are going to be headaches, digestive issues and sensitivities, and insomnia, which is really going to be a feeling of really tired, but also wired. So it's that tired and wired where you want to go to sleep and you can't sleep. And the top symptoms of burnout and exhaustion when you're finally there are going to be irritability. You just lash out so quickly and beyond what the situation is. The loss of energy where you don't feel rested even though you've slept well. A loss of desire to work or work out or engage with people that you actually want to be with. And it's a loss of joy and creative inspiration and loss of a genuine sense of happiness. Those are going to be the 3 top symptoms that you feel when you are close to the edge of burnout. So I hope that this was helpful. I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts, your feelings. I definitely want to, your comments and your questions. I truly appreciate those. If this was helpful, make sure you share and make sure you let me know. And that's all for today. And we'll talk more. I'll break them down a little bit more on future episodes. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you for joining me today on this episode of Above, Down, Inside Out. I'm your host, Dr. Natasha Nelson.